Hello and welcome to another playbook. This one is a follow-up to a previous video. We did a video on product metrics 101. And in that, we spoke about the most important metrics that we typically use to measure the success and failure of our products. But today, we are going to deep dive into building a health dashboard of metrics for our product. And we're going to take an example. We're actually going to do a case study of a sample gaming app. And let's see how the metrics evolve for a gaming app. But first, let's actually figure out what a health dashboard is. So what is a health dashboard, right? Your product's vitals in one single place. Now, when you go to a doctor and you typically go for a health checkup, there are a couple of vital stats that a doctor reads, your heart rate, your blood pressure, your weight, and then they follow it up with a series of blood tests and a bunch of other tests, right? But think of it this way. If you were running your product, what are the metrics that you would measure day in and day out to get a sense of the health of your app? And that essentially is a set of those metrics will be the dashboard, the health dashboard of your product. And that's what we are trying to get at. What are the most important metrics which tell you that there is a sign of life, which tell you that things are going well or if things are not going well, right? So all metrics are leading metrics, which means they help you make quick decisions. Leading versus lagging metrics is a very important subject to understand. Leading metrics are metrics which happen immediately as a result of something that you've done in a product. Lagging metrics happen as a much later in the product as a result of a number of different things that have happened. So they are combination metrics, and by their very nature, lagging metrics don't tell you what has caused them to happen. Leading metrics, however, actually give you a very clear indication of what would have changed for this specific number to have changed. So they are more actionable by their very nature. They help you clearly capture trends. So a health dashboard very, very clearly will tell you what happened yesterday, what happened last week, and what happened last month. And all these trends will help you figure out if things are going right or if things are going wrong. It's pretty much like plugging in your product into an EKG machine and reading the heart rate and seeing, is there arrhythmia? Is there any way in which there are fluctuations which should not be there? So that's exactly what a health dashboard does. And you can always double click for more details, which means you can always do a deep dive, but your health dashboard is not where you deep dive. The health dashboard is just a high level assessment of the health of your product. For deep diving, you have to go in for more tests. You have to do more blood tests, and you have to sit in a radiology lab and get X-rays and get other sorts of tests done. So similarly, you'll have to, you and your analytics team will have to go deeper and analyze for getting a better sense of what all is wrong. But a health dashboard, at least at an overall level, gives you a very good sense of what's going right, what's going wrong. So now, what we are going to do is we are going to take the example of a made-up game called Crossy Bubbles. The game doesn't exist. I've just created a random game called Crossy Bubbles. And this is the dashboard, a daily email or a daily sort of Excel sheet which will be generated, Google Sheet which will be generated on the metrics of your dashboard. Now let's assume that today is the 29th of July, right? So we are getting 28th July's data, right? And the D-1, the day before that was 27th July, and the day -7, which is a week before, was the 21st July. So today morning, 29th, you will see yesterday's data, you will see a -1 day data, and you'll see a -7 day data, right? The reason we want to do this is because we want to see a trend on a day-to-day basis and on a week-to-week basis, right? The first set of things that we're going to look at are acquisition metrics. So what are we going to look at? We're going to look at how many installs did we get that particular day. So we know that yesterday, 28th, we got 55,000 installs. The day before, we got 50,000 installs. And a week before, we got 32,000 installs. So now this tells us that the daily installs that we are getting on our app are going up, and that's a good sign. So you could double click and get full funnel analysis, how many impressions, what conversion, what was the App Store conversion, etc. But all these are double click metrics, which means they are deeper tests to be done. Now, the big thing that has changed over the last 2 days is that we have started paid installs, which means we are paying for acquisition. So we've started spending marketing money. We've started spending marketing dollars in getting installs, and we are getting installs from two sources. Say maybe we are running Facebook ads and maybe we are running Google ads, right? So paid source A got us 8,000 installs yesterday and 7,000 installs a day before. The cost per install, the money that we paid per install, was 90 rupees yesterday and 95 rupees day before yesterday. Paid source B got us 8,000 installs and 8,000 installs, so it's remained the same. However, the CPI has gone down, so which means we are optimizing this channel spend. The money is coming down. Now, cost of acquisition essentially then is the blended cost of acquisition. So you've acquired these 8,000 plus 8,000, 16,000 installs. But overall, you've received 55,000 installs, right? So out of these 55, you paid for 16,000. So the blended cost of acquisition is 24 rupees and it used to be 26 rupees, right? We could clearly see the cost of install just for the paid installs will obviously be somewhere between 90 and 75 because those are your two sources. So this is the first set of things that we look at. You want to break down your installs by their install sources. So you have a lot of organic installs coming in and you've just started inorganic spend. You've just started spending money on acquiring users and you want to see what their cost per installs are. The next set of metrics that you would look at are active users, right? So what are your DAUs, WAUs, and MAUs? Now we spoke about what the definition of active user is, and we said active user has to be defined based on your product. So if you were running a video product, an active user would be somebody who watches a video and not necessarily somebody who opens up the app. Now in this gaming app, we are perhaps counting DAU as somebody who comes to the app and plays at least one game, right? Plays at least one round of your game. So that's the definition we are going to use. But just to simplify life, we are saying, hey, it's daily active user, which means daily active unique users, all the unique users who used your app yesterday. So 110,000 people, of which 55,000 were new and clearly 55K were returning. So 110,000 users used your product yesterday. Day before yesterday, 105,000 used your product. And a week before that, 90,000 used your product. Now the weekly active users are all the unique users in a week who have used your product. And that's 450,000, it was 420,000, and it was 370,000 before, right? And MAU, which was monthly active users, was 700K, 690K, and 590K. Now you can double click here and sort of get a sense of how many churned, how many revived, how many users have completely left the app, have not used your game or not played your game in over 2 months. How many have revived, played last month, then didn't play for a long time, or like had churned out for 2 months, but has revived now, right? What is interesting will be the ratios of the DAU by WAU, which we'll explore further. Now we talk about engagement, right? Which is sessions per day per user. Now what you're seeing here is that the number of sessions per day per user has remained pretty constant, which means the way people engage with your game has remained pretty constant. So double click for percentile distribution of these metrics. In another video, I've spoken about why averages are not really very good indicators of what's happening, and you should be looking at percentile distribution. So do check that out. Times per session, minutes. What you're seeing here is that the amount of time per session that users are spending on this game has gone up. So you've clearly added some new features to your game, which means that the engagement per session has gone up. So users are spending more time each time they play the game, which is leading to times per user per day. So total time spent on the app. So 3.2 into 2.5 is 8. So on an average, users are spending 8 minutes per day on your product. They were spending only 6.2 minutes per day on your product. So the amount of time being spent has gone up. Now comes the worrying part. Your weekly engagement is the ratio of your DAU by WAU, and you see that this is pretty constant. It's about 24.3 to 25%, and it's pretty much it's in the same ballpark, right? What that means is that in a week, your users are pretty much playing your game 1.5 days or 2 days, right? They're not really playing more. So 2 by 7 would be 28%, right? And on a monthly basis, your numbers are about 15%, right? Which again is not great. So 1 out of 7, right? Essentially every users are playing your game 4 times in a month and not more than that. That's sort of what the ratio of DAU by MAU suggests here. These are not great ratios for a game, by the way. And while users when they play the game 3 sessions every day and they spend 8 minutes, which is decent, not great, but not bad. However, they are not playing your game as often as you would like them to. And that's a worrying factor. So your engagement is definitely a cause for worry. Now we move to the next set of metrics, which are retention. Now, we've spoken about retention in the video on Metrics 101, but essentially what retention means is that if you look at day before yesterday, and if 100 users came to your, installed your app for the very first time, so new user install retention is 44, which means a day later, 44% of them came back. So if 100 users installed your app day before yesterday, 44 of them turned up. Similarly, D7, which is users who installed the app a week before, of them only 20 came back to the product yesterday. And similarly, M1 is month over month retention. From M0 to M1 is 25%. So if 100 people installed your product last month, of them only 25% played the game yesterday in this particular month, right? So your M1 retention is 25. Again, these numbers happen to be fairly decent. Your retention numbers are slowly going up. Your D1 retention numbers, your D7 and M1 are fairly constant. These are not particularly bad retention numbers, but your engagement is a cause for worry. Again, what you would double click here are cohort graphs, right? So you want to see the movement of retention over time, and that will tell you whether you're doing the right sort of things in your product. So retention by source. So we have 2 install sources, and you definitely want to see retention by source, and that will tell you whether one installed source has better quality users compared to the other, because anything which has very poor D1 installed retention is a very poor source for you to acquire users from. So you should not be acquiring users from there. So retention by source can also be here, and you should double click on that. The last bit is revenue. You're running a game, you're monetizing this game. So how many users paid? Now, clearly the number of users who've been paying for your game has been going up. There were 1,700 users who were paying for your game, a week back, and now that's up to 3,000 users. Average revenue per paying user. So this is of the paying users, that is these 3,000 users. How much money did each person pay? And they're paying about 50 rupees, right? And again, this is average revenue. You want to potentially look at percentiles here and see what the upper end of users are spending as opposed to the lower end. But the average revenue does give you a good rate. So 3,000 multiplied by 50 is 150,000. That's your total revenue on that particular day. Now, average revenue per user is essentially this number divided by your DAU for that particular day. And if you remember, our DAU was 110,000. So average revenue per user is the total revenue divided by your DAU, and that gives you 1.36. Now, this essentially is an example of a health dashboard, right? Now, we could do this for a social app. We could do it for a video OTT app. We could do it for a SaaS product. We could do it for an enterprise product, but pretty much health dashboards would look like this. Your metrics would change. The metrics depend on the type of product you have. And here it's a game, which is why we care about acquisition sources, we care about active user base, we care about engagement, we care about retention numbers, and we care about revenue numbers. But based on the type of product, you have to figure out which are the metrics which are most important to you, which are the metrics which give you a very good indicator of the health of your product. And that is how you build a health dashboard. So hope this example gave you a good sense of how product metrics are used. Do watch the companion videos and get a better sense of how to build health dashboards for your products. And yeah, do leave your questions in the comment section. And if you're enjoying these playbooks, do subscribe to the channel. Take care and see you back here for the next playbook.